The Project DME Cycle. What is the Project DME Cycle? In this presentation, I'm going to show you the elements and components of what makes the project design, monitoring, and evaluation cycle. But before we go into the details of the cycle, we need to understand some of the problems that exist in projects and monitoring and evaluation. Here's a simple chart. It's a cartoon diagram that more or less summarizes some of these problems. We begin with an understanding of the problem, how the problem is explained. Then the next one is how the consultant understands the problem and makes an interpretation of that problem. We then go into the design, how the law firm will describe it, and how the indicators will measure it. We then see how usually it is proposed to the donor, and then how it is documented. We also see how it is implemented, how it is billed to the donor, how it is evaluated, and what the beneficiary really needed. What we see in this funny cartoon is that there is a big disconnect between what we wanted and what we needed. There is a definition of the problem, but there are too many actors involved in this decision, and each one of them has a different perspective about the problem and how we manage it. The idea is that we need to have a comprehensive approach that will define a methodology from the moment we design, understand a problem, to the moment we deliver the solution to the people that need it. So that's the idea of the project cycle. Most of the project cycles in development usually contain these elements: an element of programming, or the elements that define the goals and the strategies of the organization, an identification of the problems, the formulation of the solutions, the implementation and monitoring of the activities, and an evaluation on an audit. Most organizations and donors will have a cycle that is more or less similar to this one. In the cycle, there are three components. There is the design elements, the monitoring elements, and the evaluation elements of the cycle. What that means is that the design will create a set of elements or documents and a plan that then it is used to implement the project, monitor its activities. The data and information that is collected during the monitoring helps inform and provides information to the evaluation phase, that then provides feedback back into the design or the strategies of the organization. What we see sometimes is that there is also a need to have feedback mechanisms that provide information from the monitoring back to the design, from the evaluation back to the monitoring, and even from the design back to evaluation. The idea is that these three elements are not separate. There is a continuous connection between the three of them that provides information. The nature of development projects is that they are usually full of assumptions, risk, and that requires that there is a continuous approach to make changes and improvements in every step that we make in the project. So the idea is that these three elements of designing, monitoring, and evaluation are part of a cycle that is made out of 6 phases. And these are those 6 phases. We have the concept, design, the planning, monitoring, evaluation, and learning. Let's go into more detail with each one of them. Let's look at the concept, the first one. In the concept area is that where most of the time we identify a problem or opportunity. We make sure that it's aligned with the organization's strategy. It defines the why of a project, why we need to do it, why we need to do it in the terms that supports a strategy but also creates opportunities and solves a problem. Becomes also part of the input to develop of a formal proposal. And the concept is a document that also helps us identify the interest of many donors. The second step is the design. Once the concept is approved, then we go into a problem analysis that has more detailed information. There is the identification of alternatives and a final solution, the development of goals and objectives, and is the final input to the project proposal. All of these elements of the design help us have a good understanding of what we need to do in order to solve the problem. The third phase is planning. It's the development of a monitoring and evaluation plan, and planning to manage our resources, schedules, and risks. We also use plans to monitor our assumptions and assessments of the skills needed in the organization to manage this project. The fourth phase is monitoring. Basically, is asking the questions, how are we doing? So we look at our baseline data, we look at the process we have for data collection, our information management, information systems, and the analysis of the data and information, and the reporting that help us understand and answer the question of how we're doing. Then we have evaluation. Evaluation is asking us what is happening. So we do have an evaluation plan. We also have internal and external evaluations, and evaluation reports that tells us what is happening and what needs to be corrected. The last phase, learning, is asking us what happened. What did we learn? Is there anything that we can improve? How we're going to manage those improvements? And what are the lessons that we learned, not only in the project, but how those lessons are helping us educate or inform the next phase of the design, whether it's in the project or future projects in the organization. So, once again, our cycle is a continuous process that happens and should not be just a situation of a cycle in the life of a project. We need to take into consideration that the more we take this cycle during the life cycle of the entire project, the better our chances for success. Let's look at this process. We have usually a project with a timeline and an implementation. We do work. We act. The project will have certain activities. We monitor those activities. They inform us about changes, and we make decisions that will feed into the implementation and the changes that we need to do. We act again, we observe, and we decide. So as you start seeing, we have all these loops that happen during the implementation of a project, and that helps us inform about what is the project doing, what is happening, and what we need to change if we see that the original plan, the original design is not achieving its intended objectives. So that is going to be the theme that we're going to use in the DME cycle, that for any project, that could be a 1-year project or a 3-year-old project, we need to have these continuous loops of observation, action, decisions that help us make continuous improvements so that we can achieve the objectives of the project.